pretty good. It's only the first morning, but Jane Barrett's talk about exactly how the world's seeing ageing and is starting to change to respond to it, I thought was pretty exciting. She's talking about a shift from active ageing to a more an approach around capability, and while I'm not entirely sure what that's about, it feels like greater roles and engagement for older people, and that seems pretty good. Look, I think this has been a year with a lot of change in the way we're thinking about ageing and aged care. And this conference is an outstanding time to just see how the sector's responding to that thinking, whether it's coming from older people or from government or from employers or from the economy. And what I've seen this morning certainly would suggest that there are some shifts on the way, and even the topics in the masterclasses this afternoon around things like innovation and robotics would suggest we're going to get a lot more of that. This is not an aged care conference like one I would have gone to 5 years ago. I am just back from a Churchill, and I was looking at roles for people in their 70s, 80s, 90s, or maybe another way of thinking about that, efficient time use or intense time use for older people and by older people. There's no doubt that people are engaging in roles more than they ever have before, and that's pretty challenging for older people because the roles are not that clear. So I saw more of people working on reinvention, making transitions, positioning themselves for a future, a bright future, than I necessarily saw that coming out of the woodwork. But there's lots of stuff from the early adopters. And it's a bright time for people in their 70s, 80s, 90s. They will be much more living those decades like other decades with their own character than we've ever seen before. I think this is less a question of being old and much more a question of what do you do when you're 70, or what do you do when you're 80, or what do you do when you're 90, and how you might prepare for one decade in the previous decade. My wish would be that CDC, consumer-directed care, becomes consumer-directed life, and that it is actively embraced to work by all providers and all consumers.